Welcome in to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard De La Cruz, who is not here today, and Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good morrow.
It is Monday, May 30th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Check out the Iron Lung video. Check out our conversation with Mark Dara, ex-BioWare employee, who was great to join us, and it was a great conversation. Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can give us money, and in return, we give you the best goddamn content on the internet. Period. Pay that the man has money. I don't know what that's from. It just says stuck in my brain. We're talking news. We're talking video games. Connor, what games have you been playing?
Just the show.
Just the show. Huh?
Just the show 2022.
It'll be the show 22.
Yeah.
Joke's on you guys. I started playing the show to slowly turn this podcast into a baseball podcast. So we're talking change-ups, baby. Change-ups and range factor. No. Okay, so how's the show going?
Pretty good. I have a couple different road to the show characters going. One that's just a pure pitcher. One that's a two-position player, pitcher and catcher.
Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah.
Well, he, like Shohei Ohtani. Yeah.
And then the one I've been playing most, which is my shortstop that got changed to a right fielder because of the Royals have a good shortstop.
That's out. That's ouch right there. Who's the Royal? Is it still I know the Royal shortstop.
I don't know. It was like, hey,
Escobar, Escalades Escobar. Is it still him?
Maybe.
I don't remember.
All I know is that when it was like, the new player gets pulled into the coach's office. It's like, hey, we can either change your position or you're going to get traded. I'm like, I'll just change positions.
Right field's respectable.
Yeah.
At the professional baseball level, like in Little League, you throw the kids that can't field into the outfield. You know? It's like, oh, this is one of the kids that can't field. Toss him to the left field. Ain't nobody, or right field, because there's in Little League, everybody pulls. Yeah. So every ball goes down the third baseline because everybody's right-handed. And if there's a left-handed hitter, if there's a left-handed 9-year-old that's an extreme pull,
then you walk them.
Anyway. So you throw the kids out into right field that can't play. I played right field in Little League, but in professional baseball, right field's hard because you got to make that throw to third base.
Yeah,
you got that one of the most important throws in the game.
And some of the best players have been center fielders and right fielders.
Aaron Judge, one of the best right fielders in the field. No, Trout's a center fielder. I can't remember baseball positions. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, not to jack the conversation. I told you, baseball.
We're talking baseball right now because the only game we've been playing is the show.
Yeah, I don't. I finished God of War.
Oh, that's right. You did finish God of War again.
So I can talk about that a little bit, but continue I'm sorry.
And my main guy plays right field. I started up the two-position player, catcher, pitcher, because I was getting a little tired of playing right field and doing the same thing over and over.
Now imagine doing that for a living.
Well, I imagine
you get paid millions of dollars, but
yeah, I think getting paid for it is a little different than spending 5 hours on a couch.
It's just as glamorous though.
Moving your character to the pulsating baseball that's on the ground.
This is just like real life.
Hell yeah. With my new character, I somehow made one of the best choices because his first outing as because they had me as designated hitter on my first game.
Interesting. Okay.
And on my first outing, I start the game with a 2-run jack.
2-run jack. Nice.
And then the rest of the game I just go 6 for 6.
That's beautiful. You were 6 for 6?
I was 6 for 6.
That's a legendary
first game.
That's a legendary game right there.
And then
I wonder how many 6 for 6 games there have been in.
I don't know. But then I went my second game. They put me in as pitcher, and I went 8 innings with 2 hits.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, nice, very nice.
And now I've because when you play a two-position player and one of them is pitcher, you have to have selected. They have you refine what you want to do, whether or not you want to pitch more or to be a position player more. I have position player more and relief pitcher every now and then. And so now I come in at the 8th, shut out the inning, then get replaced by a closing pitcher. So it's my stats aren't amazing as a pitcher, but I'm still, I'm only at 4 hits now in like 16 innings pitched.
Oh wow, that's very good.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good. That's a whip of like under it's under 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I have like 8 or 9 just like pure strikeouts. Like I think like 3 of them are strikeout looking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, like doing great in there. And in the show, being the catcher is weird.
I saw you have to actually move a little
where the glove is.
I like that. I think that's cool to have little mini games like that to change up the. I don't know what that was on our Mac, but
I hope that doesn't. If it goes through,
if you're listening, that wasn't you. That was us. Yeah. So don't go nuts checking your phone.
Yeah. So you get. I wish there were a little bit more to it, like being able to tell the pitcher, "Hey, let's try this pitch," or "Let's do this pitch," instead of "This is the pitch we're doing." And then you have to position your glove into the right spot.
Oh, you know what? That's a good idea.
Because that's kind of one of the jobs of the catcher is
to sort of communicate. And that's the thing about... Sorry, I don't mean to jack the conversation.
No, go ahead.
That's the thing about sports games. Because to make a sports simulation, just like any other simulation, requires knowledge that just takes a ton of time to learn, you know? Madden, I don't know, maybe at the professional Madden levels, but like not a whole lot of people, not a whole lot of casual Madden players when they play a game of Madden enter a game with a game plan, because it's just, you don't study the opposing defense.
I think that's a good difference between like football games and baseball games. Baseball fans are the nerdiest fucking sports fans.
That is true. Baseball fans are the nerdiest fans, and that includes soccer. It's the nerdiest sport.
Yeah, it is 100% the nerdiest sport. And I think if you develop a baseball game, you can develop it more towards the simulator side.
I would agree.
Because the people who are going to casually play that game, they'll pick up that stuff quick because it's not hard to learn. It's like, oh, I'm catcher. I just pick which pitch I want them to throw. Yeah,
but then there's like the knowledge of, okay, what's the count? Who's at bat? What are their tendencies? What's a good ball to throw here? You know,
who's on base? Are they more prone to stealing?
Stealer. What's their speed? You know, is it a double play opportunity? If it's a double play opportunity, you want to throw a cutter inside unless the cutter breaks away. Stuff like that. So that's all the stuff that you could I'd imagine the show implements, but you may not know it.
Yeah,
you know, because it just recommends a cutter.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, I guess I'll just throw a cutter, but it's recommending it. But like, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's just a distinction.
And one small detail that I think is a really nice addition to the game is if you have your player as catcher, you go to their equipment loadout. On their throwing hand, you can change their fingernail color.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Because a lot of catchers do that just so they could easily signal to the pitcher.
Signal the signs and stuff.
Signal the signs, just, because they have these bright colors on their nails. That's a nice feature. But one of the things, this is what I've been trying to get to.
Sorry. It's fine. I'm a horrible podcast. Let me ask you a question. No, let me ask you this. No, let me ask you this. Sorry.
I'm having fun with this. One of the things that is a little infuriating is it's like, all right, put your glove here. This is where the ball is going to be thrown. And then the pitcher throws it wild. Every time. 9 times out of 10.
Just a bit outside.
9 times out of 10, it is either in the dirt or you're reaching for it. And when you're doing Road to the Show and you're playing defense, you're involved with the play somehow. So it's not just you're catching the ball.
You don't catch every single pitch.
Yeah. And so it's either the batter's bunting or someone's stealing. And when the pitcher always throws it wild and the guy is stealing, it is infuriating. Because it's like, I can't do anything now. And a runner gets on second. And it's on me.
And it's on you. Yeah, that's tough. Unless it's supposed to be a pitch out. But how does the game handle pitch outs?
If it's a pitch out, it just shows the glove way outside.
So it's easy to tell.
Yeah.
So that there's a distinction between a pitch out and a wild pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Because for a wild pitch, it says, okay, the glove will be here.
And that doesn't go there. And pitch out will tell you.
And then as the ball's thrown, and this is just baseball, as it is released from the pitcher's hand, it's like, oh, it's going here. And you have to move your glove over there and watch the guy at first. And
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sounds fun though. Are you having fun with it?
I'm having fun with it. Yeah. Being a power hitter pitcher is fun.
That is interesting. The only guy I can think that was a pitcher and hit for power, Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah.
And he didn't hit a whole lot. Babe Ruth. But I don't know.
You got to start reaching for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch. But again, like if Tim Kirchin were here, he'd be, there's 80 guys.
Well, and
he'd
again,
probably know.
My guy's a relief pitcher. He primarily catches. Catchers,
a relief pitcher, a power hitting relief pitcher who primarily catches. Oh, that's great. Baseball.
Yeah.
Nerdiest goddamn sport.
He has a sick 12-6.
The sick 12-6? Just to break the universe.
It drops. It just stops mid-flight, drops to the ground, then rolls into the catcher's hand.
Crushes the space-time continuum at 12 Lincecum 12-6. Okay, cool. Anything else? So Connor said no. He was taking a swig of an Arnie Palmy there. Yeah. So
best tea that there is.
So I finished God of War. The ending of God of War was really good. And yes, Atreus is definitely Kratos' son. If Atreus isn't Kratos' blood son, then it is obscured under some level of like deception.
No, he's Odin's son.
No, he's not. He's not. Not in this universe. Not in this universe.
I think he is.
No. Because Kratos even talks about. He says lines like, "When you were born, I made 2 knives," right? And that infers that he was there at his birth. Or he says, Atreus asks why his name is Atreus, right? And Kratos talks about it, but then they learn that Loki was the name that the giants called him, right? So while in mythology,
I still personally think from the game that he is Odin's son.
The only problem with that is, like, it's not impossible, but it would be one of those things where it would take an explanation that it would take a weird explanation. It would take an explanation that, like, Kratos either doesn't know that Atreus is his actual son, or that Atreus isn't his son, or Kratos does know, but he treats him like that anyway. I don't know, it'd be a complicated discussion. So it's not impossible, but I think that what I initially thought is correct. That Kratos, and I think even Mimir has a line where he's like, "You're a part of this in a bigger way," or something like that. Good sorry. Impression. I apologize to everybody in Northern Ireland, or in Ireland in general, for that. I apologize. So I think it is like Kratos, and there's also like the giants have a mural. And that mural tells the story of Kratos and Atreus, and they find that at the end of the game, right? And Ragnarok has certain weird things with like time travel in it. And I love this. I don't think it's cheesy. Where like the Jormungandr, the world serpent, was hit so hard by Thor that he traveled back in time, and it's like, well, how does that make sense? And time moves differently in different realms, right? So like in Jotunheim, or home of the giants, time moves incredibly fast or incredibly slow. I don't remember exactly. Either one, it's an extreme. And they already have a mural up of the entire game's story when you get there. So it's like, well, how is that possible?
Well, also because they were prophetic.
And oh shoot, what was I going to say? Oh, and then there's a mural that shows Kratos dying in Atreus' arms.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Well, it's fine.
Well, we don't know if it's spoilers because the next installment hasn't come out yet.
But what I'm trying to say is that Kratos is a part of the universe, right?
Yeah.
And then when Kratos kills Baldur, Mimir says that, Ragnarok wasn't supposed to start for a couple hundred winters, but it's starting now. You changed something, dude. So I think that they, rather than injecting a fictionalized figure from Greek mythology, it's also changing the sort of, it's a fictionalized version of Norse mythology. So Norse mythology is already, fictional, but it's, according to me, and some people may believe that's fine.
That's not what I was getting at. I was like, I think there's a lot of loosey-goosiness inside of Norse mythology.
Yes, but this one is
that Kratos and Odin could be the father of.
But it deviates from the general telling of it, I guess, But anyway, so that's where I arrived there. God of War 2018, I think, is one of the best games ever made.
It's phenomenal, yeah.
It's one of the best stories ever told in a game. I'm going to play through the original God of Wars 1, 2, and 3. So that'll be something that I do over the summer. I picked it up at a place called Fallout Games. Go buy games from Fallout Games.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Not sponsored. And no one on the show right now has a relationship with Fallout Games. But other than that, yeah, I think we're good for the ad.
All right.
At the end.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
Embracer Group has started a game archive called the Embracer Games Archive. Their goal is to simply to archive and save as much as the video game industry as is possible. Right now, Embracer says they have 50,000 games, consoles, and accessories. Their staff includes David Bostrom, an archivist, technical engineer, and supply manager.
And David Bostrom's the CEO, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
They want to work with other preservation organizations to help researchers and journalists with research and eventually have the public exhibits at their location in Sweden, but also satellite exhibits at other locations. Reading straight from the website, for us, games are more than just games. It's culture. Something created by great people with creative ideas. By building a large archive of physical games, we want to preserve and tribute the games culture for a long period of time. End quote.
I love everything about this. There's always... So we're big into game preservation on this podcast. Richard, all of us. And this is something that I love. I was just looking up Frank Cifaldi's Twitter, and I'll look up Kelsey Lewin's Twitter too to see if they had anything to say about this yet. But anyway, I love this. But I'm always, it's connected to a corporation.
Yeah.
It's connected to a big publisher. And that's the thing that, makes me nervous. Because when you enter into... I don't know. I think when you enter into video game preservation right now, you're getting into some legal gray areas, right? When it comes to copyright law, when it comes to digitization, when it comes to preserving anything, right? Because you may not necessarily have the rights to do it. And I don't have exact quotes, so I'm paraphrasing, but this is something that that Kelsey Lewin and Frank Cifaldi have talked with at the Video Game History Foundation is... Some of the things that they do, well, let me say this differently. It's like a spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. So the more official you are, the more difficult it may be to preserve things or keep things, because now you're working under certain legal obligations because you're a 501c nonprofit or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you can't be as Wild Westy. As opposed to if you're a group on the internet, like that group that dumped the, what was that? The big dump of games a couple months back with Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah.
Where you're on the internet and you're essentially an autonomous just group of individuals, you don't have to abide by a lot of those restrictions because you're not necessarily a legal organization. And I think that's a really fascinating discussion. So back to this thing with Embracer Group, this is a great, I think official preservation like this is great, but I'm always skeptical because it's connected to a gigantic corporation, and gigantic corporations aren't in the business of trying to preserve things, even the companies that make the things aren't in the business of preserving things. As Frank Cifaldi has said, you can't leave preservation up to the IP owners. Mm-hmm. And why that is, I think, is a fascinating discussion. But how will the financials shake out? I don't know. I'd imagine that Embracer Group doesn't expect to make a ton of money with this.
Well, that's one thing that I'm curious about are they a 501c?
I didn't see, and this is based in Sweden.
Yeah, so I don't know if
I have no idea.
But are they a nonprofit organization that's doing this for the altruistic side of preserving culture and art?
Yeah.
Because if they are, then I could see a lot of companies, wanting to not necessarily to buy in, but to provide stuff to them to preserve, because one, it looks good for them donating this stuff to a nonprofit organization that's about preserving culture and art.
Yeah, and I don't know if this organization is technically a nonprofit because I have no idea. I don't know how those things work in the United States. Don't know how these things
regardless,
work.
it looks good if they're donating to this thing that's about preserving culture and art.
That's
and secondly,
yeah.
It preserves their game.
This is true. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if the IP owner doesn't have to do it, if they could just shove it off onto someone else, they might.
That's an interesting point. If there's a way to
if all
shift responsibility like that, I think that's interesting. I looked. Kelsey Lewin and Frank Cifaldi have not said anything, and I'm not saying that they are the only two people that would have. Yeah. There are hundreds of people that may have something to say about this. They're just our go-to people that we'll have on the show next week.
I mean, they are typically on the forefront when it comes to games preservation.
Yeah, I would. I don't think that. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I would say that, and I trust their judgment. I don't know. This isn't a podcast about them, but anyway, go check them out.
We're all talking about games preservation, and again, they are heavily tied into it.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I'm good. Keep going.
All right. Sony says it plans on releasing more games on mobile and PC. According to a new document from the company, also some of this was released during their previous financial reports. Here are some highlights. By 2026, Sony plans to release half of its games on PS5, about 30% on the PC, and the remaining 20% on mobile. By comparison, in March 2019, 90% of their games were released on PS4 and 10% were on PC. Sony's projects it'll have 12 live service games by
fiscal year.
That's what F was.
This is my fault. I wrote the notes, and I wrote notes for myself. I like to do the cha-cha. I apologize. Continue.
By fiscal year 2025, from 1 this year.
So Sony projects it'll have 12 live service games by 2025 fiscal year. So March to March.
Yeah.
And the only one they have right now is MLB The Show. Yeah.
The show isn't an exclusive, and once Sony buys Bungie, Destiny won't be either.
Yeah.
Sony estimates that live service investments on PS5 will be 49% in fiscal year 2022, and expects it to be 50% or 55% rather by 25. One last note on PC.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Thank you. Has sold just over 2.3 million copies. Days Gone, 852,000 copies. And God of War, 971,000 copies. Coming out to about $108.9 million in revenue.
So, apologize for throwing you under the bus there with the notes.
That's all right.
I'm a horrible driver, and I apologize. Okay, so I think there's a lot fascinating here. Their estimate, I don't know, there's some like little tiny nitpicks I have, and there's some sort of overarching things. Their estimates on live service investment, I wonder if they take into account that there's live service investment on PS5s. I wonder if they took into account the current state of the PlayStation 5. I looked around, there's this document, I didn't see anything. It could very well be that somewhere buried in their financial report they talked about this, I don't know. But right now, there's not a lot to play on the PS5. I mean, you could everything that you can play on, there's a lot of games, but what I'm saying is there's not a lot of exclusives.
There's not a lot of PS5
There's not a lot of PS5
There's a lot of games
right?
on the PS5, but very few of them exclusively for the PS5.
There's not a lot of games that you have to have a PS5 to play.
Yeah.
Right? Returnal, I'm sure there's a few others, but there's not a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the overall point here. So in that situation, people that have PS5s are looking to play things on the PS5, right? So, I don't know. If you were playing something that's cross-platform on an Xbox One, you bought a PS5, you don't have a ton of stuff on the PS5, so you decide, okay, I'll just play this game that I was playing on my Xbox One, I'll play it on my PS5, right? And now that revenue is shifting from the Microsoft environment to the Sony environment, to the Sony ecosystem, right? So it's, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because the coronavirus and the shortage, however you want to call it, the PS5 scarcity, all that has I think manipulated these numbers in a lot of ways that we just don't I'm not sure everybody knows exactly how it's manipulating things, right? And I think that could be one way. And of course, when we talk about live service games, there's always a conversation about what is it that you want to make? What's your goal with a live service game? And then is that goal something worthwhile, right? Now, the definition of worthwhile varies because Strauss-Zelnick would tell you that every game should be a mobile game because mobile games make money. And when you have a one-track mind with zero creativity, that's what happens. When you think Western games are a big,
gamers don't want Western games, Tyler. They don't want to be cowboys.
When that is your paradigm through which you think, then this makes sense. But of course, I think it's more complicated. They say they want to have up to, they estimate they're going to have 12 live service games. Okay. I don't know. What is the point of a live service game? The point is it's a monetization tale, right? So you may argue that the point of a live service game is you want to have this big audience and all of their disposable income goes to buying the stupid shit that you do with your live service.
AKA a money tale.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem is that's not necessarily true. What you want to find with a live service game is the people that are going to spend the exorbitant amount of money, I hate to use the phrase whales, but that's what it is, right? Because I think that's the goal, is to find that audience, right? So if you have 10,000 people playing a game, 10,000 people playing a live service game, and they're each paying barely enough, if an entry price, or, let's say with Halo Infinite, let's say you had to pay $60 for Halo Infinite, right? Well, you know what? We don't even have to do that. Halo Infinite's free to play.
Yep.
But they don't want people like me that launched Halo Infinite don't buy any of the loot boxes. I'm not the goal. The goal is the people that are going to buy the loot boxes that are going to engage with the monetization, right?
And honestly, it's not just the people that are going to buy the loot boxes. It's not the people that are spending $120 a year, $10 a month on loot boxes. They want the people that are spending upwards of $1,000 a year, if not more.
I think they take both.
They're glad to take both, but they're
the whales. The whales are, what's the word I'm looking for? They are. Damn it, I'm blanking on the word here. They are exponentially more financially effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because they make more money so many times more over than the other smaller purchasers, right? And so the trying to draw this back to, so the point of live service games is to find that audience, right? That keeps monetization in for overpriced cosmetics and shit like that. All right, if you have 12 live service games, not only are live service games competing with one another, but now you have to find audiences
for each one,
for each of these live service games, right? And that's difficult. You have to
find the big spenders for those each ones and try to make sure that they're not bleeding over to the other ones. And I mean, of course, that all that money goes to you anyway. But if they're diversifying their spending in those different games, they may not be spending as much per month in each of those games. So having 12 games on your console that are all about capitalizing on people spending money nonstop, you're gonna have to make them wildly different games to make sure that you get into each different niche market for these spenders.
Yeah, I don't see what the point of having so many different live service games is, right? And this is just an estimation, but I think it's I still think it's interesting to pick apart, because this is one of the biggest companies in the world when it comes to video games. Throwing this to the wall and seeing if it sticks. So I think it's worth investigating and picking apart. And I just don't think it makes sense. We look at AAA game now. Not a lot of AAA game companies have cover the same ground as Sony does, as PlayStation does. I understand that. But Electronic Arts has FIFA, Battlefield. They don't have very many gigantic live service games, right? And Battlefield's not doing great.
Yeah, Battlefield.
Star Wars Battlefront 2, I'm sure there's still people fucking buying loot boxes, whatever. Yeah. I'm glad they're happy. But they don't have 10 live service games, right? Galaxy of Heroes, there's one for mobile, right?
Yeah.
The Star Wars game.
But that's a mobile game. It's not on a console.
Yeah, it's not on a console, so maybe
it's a different it's another ecosystem.
Yeah. But if you go company to company, you'll find that they don't have a ton of live service games, right? because I don't think I think it sort of defeats the purpose of having a bunch of different live service
Because
games.
you're just competing with yourself.
Because if you want to find these audiences that are going to spend a ton of money, and then you have multiple games that do it, you're already competing against other people to do it. Now you're going to be competing against yourself, and I just don't think that makes sense. I think let's get to the other thing here. So Sony talks about expanding into mobile, and why? Again, it's because mobile makes money.
Yep.
But that just sucks. Like, can we just say mobile gaming sucks?
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, I'm sure there are good mobile games out there, but I mean, for the freemium economy, it sucks because games aren't made to be played; they're made to be monetized. And when that's the route you take for development, it sucks. And I understand. And listen, I'm not saying that people that make free-to-play games and things like that are bad people. Of course not. But I think it is a monetization scheme that has negatively affected the gaming industry and has done more harm than good. Has generated a lot of money for white douchebags sitting in C-suite somewhere. And other than that, hasn't done a lot, right? So when we talk about Sony's transition to if they want to do more mobile, and it's like, why? Why try to encroach in that market? Right now, Sony has the bet. Maybe if Richard were here, and you may disagree with me, well, I don't know. What do you think? Between Sony and Nintendo, who has the better first-party lineup? I think that's a difficult discussion. You ask a Nintendo fan, I'll tell you Nintendo.
Yeah.
You ask anybody else, it's a difficult discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, what do you think?
Current lineup, games coming out.
Sure, let's just say right now. Let's say you had one choice. You play Nintendo games for the next 2 years. You play Sony games the next 2 years, whatever.
Yeah, that is difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something that says something about Sony's first-party games, right? You have The Last of Us, you have Naughty Dog, you have
God of War.
You have Ghost of Tsushima 2 that's going to be a few years. Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't perfect, or Horizon Forbidden West wasn't perfect, but I still enjoyed it greatly. So you have a lot of, Returnal was good. I think Housemarque's next game could be something interesting, because if they expand and go bigger, it'd be interesting to see what they do there. But their first party lineup, I think, is where they really butter their bread. Almost said bread their butter. Where they really butter their bread, right?
Yeah.
And so to take away from that, it's just like, why? You're just trying to break into a mobile market that is full of live service freemium bullshit. And maybe they want to find a galaxy of heroes like EA. Maybe they just want to find some one bullshit game that people play while they're taking a shit or on the bus to work or some shit. I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of respect for it.
Yeah,
and
I
and
understand.
it's fine. It's fine if you play mobile games. It's okay. It's just, it bothers me.
Tyler doesn't like them.
I'm Martin Scorsese when it comes to mobile
It's not
games.
art.
It's not art, goddammit. Sorry.
I was going to go somewhere. It feels a little antithetical to where Sony has been in the past 10 years.
Oh, this is surprising because they've been so protective of their first party IPs.
And not just that, like, Sony has put out very few, like, they have their 5 franchises that they milk to shit. We're taking these games and we're going to ride them till they're dead. And they do that because they put in a lot of time in making sure that they are quality games.
Yeah. Every year there's a PlayStation game that's a Game of the Year contender.
And that blows people's minds with how in-depth and beautiful the game is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been their MO for the past 20 years.
For a long time, yeah. I'm not great on history off the top of my head.
I mean,
for a long time, we'll say.
I'll say past 10 years.
Sure. Well, definitely since the PS4, Xbox One generation.
Mm-hmm.
They've just been cranking out. It's just like you with 6 for 6. They've just been cranking out hits and homers and RBIs. It's been crazy.
Mm-hmm. And so them saying, well, we're now going to break into the mobile market. It's really antithetical to where they've been the past decade.
Yeah.
And well, who knows? They may release, a mobile game that's a AAA quality mobile game.
They might, but it's not going to happen.
They probably won't.
Because the incentive isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wouldn't make sense. If you're going to do a AAA game on mobile, why not just make it a AAA? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why put that much effort and that kind of budget into something that you know you can spend half on and still make a return because you're selling stupid loot boxes or some shit, right? So it just, I don't think the economics make sense.
And we won't know really anything until it starts to happen. But 20% on mobile, what they said by 2025, right? March 2026.
So fiscal year. So March 2025 to March 2026, right?
20% of their games on mobile.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't make sense to me because if you break into that and you start making money, then how do you tell investors and how do you tell executives, hey, we're making money in this sector, but we don't want to pivot anymore? No, we're going to stop.
Let's think about this for a second because we were just talking about how Sony releases very few games, very few first-party games. 20% isn't a lot of 6.
Well, no, I still don't care. I don't care. Why do it at all? But that's the thing is if they make money, then you can't tell me that the priorities won't shift, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at how Electronic Arts has handled things. Mm-hmm. Everything is live service. Everything is loot boxes because that's what happens when you're a CEO or when you're an executive.
When you decide that people don't want cowboy games.
Exactly. So that's the point I'm trying to make here is you break into that market, you're already doing something great, but the priorities shift. And if you're successful in that market, that only incentivizes you to continue shifting your priorities. Mm-hmm. And I think I thought it was fascinating that they've been successful with the games that they've released on PC. I think that's a better market to break into.
Absolutely.
Because, listen, Xbox is doing great. We're fans of Xbox, whatever. Maybe not their cultural stuff. We can talk about that later. But thank you, Phil. With Xbox Game Pass, the selling point is not the Xbox games. The selling point is everything else that's on there. With Bethesda, that may change things up. But if Sony starts bringing more PlayStation games, I think they can really dominate a big corner there, right? Because if those games are successful on PlayStation,
God of War released 4 years ago, and it almost sold 1 million copies on
and
PC.
It released in January, right? And I think so I think that makes more sense because it's a new, relatively untouched market for the AAA games that you spend so much time and money making. That seems like a smarter investment. Well, it seems like a more worthwhile investment if you want to make quality video games than the mobile market, which incentivizes things differently. And I think because of that incentivization will make some people want to change the way they make their games. I don't think that's an unfair assumption. I don't think it's conspiratorial either. I'm not saying that next year all of a sudden Sony's going to go 100% mobile, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, you open up that door, you start making money, all of a sudden one fucking shareholder's like, can we do this some more? And then all of a sudden you have to figure out, and then, get a mobile economy, you try a mobile economy in a AAA game or something like that, a la Star Wars Battlefront 2, and that's how these things go. So I don't think I'm being conspiratorial
No. But again, looking at the numbers, 50% of Sony games on PlayStation 5, 30% on PC, and then 20% on...
Don't hear it!
On mobile.
Don't hear
it! There's not going to be a lot of mobile games.
Oh!
all 6 of their Sony first-party games, you get 20% of that on...
I want 100% on the PS5, goddammit. Anyway, that's not a bad point, but yeah. We understand our positions. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Phil Spencer.
Xbox.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was putting the marker down so that I could do.
Says Xbox will recognize Raven's union during an internal all-hands-on meeting with Xbox Game Studios employees. Phil Spencer
Xbox
said, quote, Linda, Norman, and I have been spending a lot of time educating myself on unions. We absolutely support employees' right to organize and form unions. Once the deal closes, we would absolutely support an employees organization that's in place. We think it's a right of employees and something that can be a part of a relationship between a company and people who work at the company. And quote, the quote came from Kotaku, who was able to view a recording of the meeting. Linda Norman is Deputy General Counsel for Xbox. So I think that's interesting. Because this quote... So listen, is this a big deal? Like, I don't know. Because it would be weird if the National Labor Relations Board was like, yes, you can have a union, and then Phil Spencer was like, nope. I don't think that seems like that would be illegal. Mm-hmm. Not a lawyer, not an expert, but that seems like that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right? So this seems like the right thing to say, but also maybe the only thing to say. I don't know. However, it is a different tone than Activision,
which is just pushback,
which is union busting, and which was, 19 employees shouldn't decide the fate for blah, 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 as if a couple fucking executives
don't decide the fate for all employees.
Yeah, exactly. So, and get the hell out of here. Sorry, I'm just angry since the freaking don't put your games on mobile, Sony. Anyway, so I'm sure there are people at Xbox that are as anti-union as there are at Activision Blizzard, right? Mm-hmm. But at least this is a better tone than Activision Blizzard took.
Yeah,
and Activision Blizzard has done nothing but make itself look like a clown show for the past 2 years or whatever it is now.
I think also by taking this stance, maybe they're opening up the possibility for their other developers they own and subsidize to unionize.
Yeah,
maybe they're trying to.
If you work for Xbox and you see this, maybe
now there's precedent for they'll allow unions.
Yeah, their attitude doesn't seem as hostile. Mm-hmm. Again, but even if that's superficial, because I'm 100% certain, that there's people in Xbox that would just go straight for the throat of a union attempt or something like that. I'm not surprised. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Are we ready for tidbits?
Sure.
A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
I would love to talk about running the fade and tidbits. This is what happens. We're going to record tidbits. I'm going to yell about sports, and we're going to send it to Richard and be like, this is what happens when you're not here. This is what happens to the show. Now,
speaking of the show,
it's a 1-2 count, man on first.
Just a bit outside.
Follow us on Twitter at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse to support us. And we will see you next week.
Bye.